Dr. Kim-soo stared at the data on his screen, rubbing his tired eyes. The coffee beside him had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. Something was wrong with space itself. The first readings came from Earth's oldest space telescope. Everyone else used fancy quantum sensors, but humanity still relied on their clunky old machines. Kim laughed to himself. Maybe being behind in technology wasn't always bad. "Hey, look at this," he called to his colleague across the room. Dr. Park Min was debugging the computer system again. Their equipment broke down every week, but they always fixed it somehow. Park walked over, her shoes squeaking on the metal floor. The space station smelled like recycled air and instant noodles. Not glamorous like the alien stations, but it was home. "What am I looking at?" Park asked, squinting at the display. "Sector 7 Alpha. Watch the stars." They stared at the screen together. Stars twinkled in the void, same as always. Then Kim clicked to the next image. Several stars had vanished completely. "Sensor error?" Park suggested, but her voice was uncertain. "I checked 3 times. Those stars are gone. Not hidden, not blocked. Gone." Park pulled up a chair and started typing. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she compared data from different days. More stars disappeared with each image. "This isn't possible," she whispered. Meanwhile, in the fancy council chambers of Nexus Station, alien ambassadors discussed trade agreements. The Zephyri floated like living clouds, their bodies shifting between states of matter. The architects looked like walking crystals, their minds linked to quantum computers. They had sensors that could detect a grain of sand from 10 light-years away. But they were looking at other things. Back on Earth Station, Kim couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about those missing stars. He walked to the observation deck and looked out at space. Somewhere out there, something was eating the universe. The next morning brought worse news. An entire star system had vanished overnight. Not just the stars, the planets, the gas clouds, everything. Like someone had erased them from existence. Kim sent urgent messages to the Galactic Council. No response. He tried the Zephyri Science Division. They sent back a polite message saying they were investigating unusual phenomena. The architects didn't reply at all. "Typical," muttered Lieutenant Lee from the communications room. "We find the end of the world and nobody cares." But Kim didn't give up. He called his old friend Dr. Yoon at Seoul University. Within hours, every telescope on Earth pointed toward the anomaly. What they found made everyone's blood run cold. A sphere of absolute darkness was growing in space. Not a black hole. Those were different. This thing consumed light itself. Anything that touched its edge simply stopped existing. Dr. Yoon ran calculations on his ancient computer. "At this rate, it'll reach the outer colonies in 3 months. Finally, the aliens noticed. The Zephyri ambassador arrived at Earth Station, her ghostly form flickering with concern. "We must convene the council immediately." The meeting was held in the grand chamber of Nexus Station. Representatives from 100 worlds argued in dozens of languages. The architects spoke through mathematical equations that appeared in the air. The Zephyri communicated through color changes in their bodies. Everyone had theories. The darkness was a weapon from another dimension. It was the birth cry of a new universe. It was the death rattle of an old one. The Zephyri suggested transcending to higher planes of existence. We can phase shift beyond its reach. The architects proposed hiding in pocket universes. Temporary refuge until the phenomenon passes. Other races offered their own solutions, each more fantastic than the last. But they all had one thing in common. They involved running away. Dr. Kim stood to speak. His simple brown suit looked shabby among the floating robes and crystal bodies of the other delegates. "We need to go closer," he said. "Study it up close." The chamber fell silent. Then laughter erupted from several directions. "Impossible," declared the Zephyri leader. "Our most advanced probes are destroyed instantly." "Your primitive technology is even less equipped than ours," added an architect. Kim felt his face burn, with embarrassment. But Lieutenant Park stood beside him. "Maybe that's exactly why we should try," she said firmly. The aliens returned to their debates, but Kim noticed something. While they talked, the darkness grew larger. Every minute spent in discussion was a minute closer to disaster. Outside the chamber, Kim met Captain Choi from Earth's Defense Force. "You really want to send people into that thing?" "Someone has to," Kim replied. "Everyone else is too smart to try." Choi nodded slowly. "Sometimes being too smart makes you too scared to act." That night, Kim stood on the observation deck again. The darkness was visible now, a patch of nothing among the stars. While the greatest minds in the galaxy debated what to do, Earth's small fleet prepared for the impossible. They might fail. They probably would fail. But at least they were willing to try. The council chambers buzzed with panic. Representatives from across the galaxy watched as the darkness swallowed another star system. The holographic display showed a growing void, where the Kepler system used to be. 5 planets, 3 moons, and millions of lives gone in an instant. Captain Choi walked into the chaos wearing his simple Earth uniform. Next to the floating Zephyri and crystalline architects, he looked like a child who'd wandered into an adult meeting. The other delegates barely glanced at him. The Zephyri leader's voice echoed like wind through crystal caves. "We must retreat to the higher planes. This physical realm is lost." The lead architect's geometric head pulsed with light patterns. "Our calculations show 14 suitable pocket dimensions. We can preserve ourselves there." Other voices joined in, each more desperate than the last. The snake-like Visari wanted to freeze themselves in time stasis. The gas giant dwellers spoke of merging with cosmic winds. Choi cleared his throat. The sound was tiny in the massive chamber, but somehow it cut through the noise. All eyes turned to him. "Earth proposes a direct reconnaissance mission," he announced. The chamber fell silent. Then came the laughter. Cruel, dismissive sounds from a dozen different species. "Impossible," hissed a Visari delegate. "Our most advanced drones are destroyed. In seconds. Your primitive ships won't even reach the edge," scoffed the architect. The Zephyri leader's form flickered with what might have been pity. "Young humans, you don't understand. This force consumes matter itself. Nothing can survive contact." Choi pulled out a battered tablet, ancient by galactic standards. "Maybe that's exactly why we might succeed." The hologram shifted, showing Earth's recent data. Dr. Kim's readings appeared on screen, crude and simple compared to the aliens' displays. "Look at these probe survival times," Choi said. "The more advanced the technology, the faster it's destroyed. Our primitive nuclear drives lasted longest." The delegates exchanged glances. Their translation devices struggled with human concepts like, "maybe simple is better." Captain Park stood up from the human delegation's small table. "We've already sent reconnaissance teams to the edge." Another wave of shocked murmurs. The Zephyri leader's form darkened with disapproval. "This is madness. You cannot risk sentient lives on such folly." "We already did," Park replied calmly. "Dr. Han's team returned this morning." The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in languages that sounded like music, mathematics, and natural disasters. The humans waited patiently. On the display, Dr. Han's shaky footage appeared. His small ship crept toward the darkness, instruments sparking and failing, but it got closer than any other vessel had managed. "Impossible," whispered the architect leader. "Your technology should not function at all." Han's voice crackled through the speakers. "The anomaly seems to feed on complex energy patterns. Our simple systems aren't interesting enough to it." The aliens fell silent processing this information. Their advanced minds, capable of calculating across dimensions, struggled with such a basic concept. Dr. Yoon stepped forward, holding an ancient computer core. "We found something else. The darkness responds to our transmissions, but only the simple ones." He played a recording of radio pulses aimed at the anomaly. The void's edge rippled like water when touched by the basic signals. "It's trying to communicate," Park added. "Our quantum communications are ignored, but it responds to basic binary code." The Zephyri leader's form blazed with indignation. You suggest this cosmic force is talking? We think it's in pain, Choi said quietly. Laughter erupted again, but this time it sounded hollow. The darkness had consumed 3 more systems during their debate. Time was running out. The architect representatives began heated mathematical discussions. Their crystal bodies flashed with incomprehensible equations. The Zephyri merged into a single entity, debating in colors beyond normal vision. Meanwhile, Earth's small delegation worked on their tablets. They used programs that looked like they belonged in a museum, but somehow got the job done. Engineer Lee pulled up ship schematics. We're retrofitting the entire outer fleet, analog controls, chemical propulsion, basic electronics. This is insane, declared a delegate from the machine worlds. You're making your ships worse. Exactly, Choi smiled grimly. Sometimes worse is better. The debate raged on. The advanced civilizations proposed increasingly complex solutions: dimensional shields, quantum barriers, reality manipulators. Each idea sounded more impossible than the last. Choi watched the holographic display. 3 more hours, and another system would be consumed. While the galaxy's greatest minds debated, the darkness crept closer. He stood up quietly and walked out. Park and the rest of the human delegation followed. In the corridor, they could still hear the arguments echoing from the chamber. They'll debate until it swallows them, Park said sadly. Maybe, Choi replied. But we won't. They headed back to their ship. Earth's fleet was already moving into position. The alien delegates could keep talking. Humanity had a job to do. The darkness waited for no one, and neither would they. The underground labs beneath Seoul hummed with activity. Dr. Lee worked through her 3rd night without sleep, her eyes red from staring at screens. Empty coffee cups littered her desk like monuments to exhaustion. This is crazy, muttered her assistant, Dr. Park, adjusting his thick glasses. We're literally making our ships dumber. Lee laughed tiredly. 20 years of space travel, and we're going backward to vacuum tubes and analog gauges. On the main screen, test results scrolled past. Every time they simplified the technology, the survival rate improved. Quantum computers died instantly. Digital systems lasted minutes. But analog circuits? They kept working even at the darknesses. Edge Captain Nam stood in the shipyard, watching engineers gut his destroyer. They ripped out quantum processors and installed mechanical switches. Digital displays were replaced with old-fashioned dials. The ship's AI was disconnected completely. Sir, this makes no sense, his chief engineer complained. We're turning a starship into an antique. Nam touched one of the new analog controls. The metal was cold and simple. Sometimes antiques work when nothing else will. The modifications weren't pretty. Cables snaked across walls where elegant fiber optics used to run. Mechanical levers replaced touchscreens. The crew had to relearn everything: how to calculate jumps by hand, how to aim weapons with manual sights. Communications Officer Kim discovered something important while testing the new systems. She was trying to send a simple radio message when the signal bounced back strangely. Dr. Lee, she called excitedly. The darkness is answering. Everyone rushed to her station. On the old oscilloscope, waves danced in response to their signals. The pattern wasn't random. It had rhythm, like a heartbeat. It's not just consuming, whispered Park. It's trying to tell us something. They spent hours sending different signals. Complex messages vanished without response. But simple pulses, on-off patterns like Morse code, came back every time. Dr. Yoon arrived with his team of linguists. They stared at the patterns, trying to find meaning in the electronic heartbeat. It's like listening to someone scream through water, Yoon said. The message is there, but we can't understand it. While Earth scientists worked, the galactic community grew more frantic. The Zephyri announced they were beginning their ascension to higher dimensions. The architects started sealing away entire star systems in pocket universes. Evacuation fleets launched by the thousands. Advanced civilizations fled toward the galaxy's center, leaving their frontier worlds to the darkness. Admiral Song watched the evacuation ships pass by Earth's position. "Trillions of beings running away," she said to her staff. "And we're the only ones flying toward the danger." Her flagship now looked like a museum piece. Steam gauges and mechanical controls filled the bridge. The crew wore bulky spacesuits because the life support systems were too complex. They'd installed simple air tanks instead. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Kim from her analog radio station. "We're getting stronger responses from the anomaly. The signals are becoming more urgent." Song studied the oscilloscope patterns. The electronic screams were getting more intense. "It's suffering," she realized. "That thing is in pain." The test flights began quietly. Volunteer pilots took modified shuttles closer to the darkness than anyone had dared. Captain Choi led the first mission himself. His ship shook as it approached the void. Modern vessels would have been destroyed kilometers away, but his analog systems kept working. The simple mechanical instruments showed impossible readings. "I can see the edge clearly," he reported through the crackling radio. "It's not solid, it ripples like water." As he got closer, the radio filled with electronic noise. But through the static came something else. Patterns that sounded almost like words. "Did you hear that?" Choi transmitted. Back at base, Dr. Kim rewound the recording. Hidden in the noise were rhythm patterns that matched brainwaves. Specifically, "The patterns of pain and distress, my God," she whispered. "It's not a weapon or a force, it's alive." The breakthrough came from Dr. Park's teenage daughter. She was helping in the lab when she heard the recordings. "Dad, play it slower," she suggested. When they slowed the signals down, everybody heard it. A voice crying out in electronic pain. The darkness wasn't consuming randomly. It was thrashing in agony, and everything it touched died. Song gathered her fleet commanders. "We're not fighting a weapon," she announced. "We're trying to help a dying creature." The room fell silent. These were military officers trained for battle. But this wasn't a war, it was a rescue mission. "How do we help something that size?" asked Captain Kim. "The same way we help anything that's hurt," Song replied. "We listen, we understand, we act." The retrofit program accelerated. Ships across Earth's fleet were stripped down to basics. Crews, trained on manual controls. Pilots learned to fly by sight and sound instead of computer assistance. The other races watched in amazement and horror. The humans were making themselves weaker, more vulnerable. To advanced civilizations used to perfect technology, it seemed like suicide. But the test results didn't lie. Simple worked where complex failed. Basic survived where advanced died. As Earth's fleet prepared for the impossible mission, one question echoed through every human mind. How do you comfort something the size of a solar system? They were about to find out. Captain Yang gripped the manual controls as his ship approached the darkness. Through his analog periscope, the void looked like a black ocean stretching endlessly before them. Behind him, 300 human ships followed in formation. "All systems green," reported his engineer, checking gauges with an actual flashlight. Their primitive instruments glowed in the dim bridge like candles. "Distance to anomaly edge?" Yang asked. 2,000 kilometers and closing," came the reply from the navigator, who was using a sextant and paper charts. The radio crackled with reports from other ships. "Dragon Squadron, holding formation. Phoenix Wing, all green." Voices stayed calm, but Yang could hear the fear underneath. To the watching galaxy, it looked like suicide. The Zephyri had retreated to higher dimensions. The architects sealed themselves in their pocket universes. Only humans flew toward certain death. At 500 kilometers, the first ship suffered damage. Captain Park's destroyer started losing hull plates, but her manual controls kept working. "Hull integrity dropping," Park reported calmly. "But we're not being torn apart like the probes. We're just rusting." Yang watched his own hull through the periscope. Metal was aging years in seconds, but the simple mechanical parts kept functioning. 100 kilometers to contact," announced the navigator. The bridge grew quiet, except for the hum of analog equipment. Yang could smell fear sweat and ozone. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart raced. All ships prepare for entry. The first ships touched the darkness. Yang watched as Captain O's vessel disappeared into the void, like a stone dropping into black water. Her radio signal faded but didn't die. "This is O." Her voice crackled through static. "I'm inside something. The instruments still work. It's not empty here." Yang's ship hit the edge. The sensation was like diving into cold tar. Everything went black, but the gauges still glowed. Radio signals bounced weirdly, but they worked. "Contact established," Yang transmitted to the fleet. "We're inside. It's incredible." Through the periscope, Yang saw something impossible. The void wasn't empty. It was full of swirling energy patterns that looked like neurons firing, like being inside a massive brain. Lieutenant Lee, his communications officer, was working frantically with her analog radio. "Captain, I'm picking up patterns, the same pain signals as before, but stronger." The signals pulsed through the ship, like a heartbeat. Yang could feel them in his bones. "Dragon Leader, this is Phoenix Wing," came Captain Nam's voice. "We're seeing structures here, like blood vessels or pathways." Yang adjusted his heading, following the energy patterns deeper. Other ships spread out, mapping the impossible interior of the darkness. Pilot O made the breakthrough. She'd always been the best at reading electronic patterns. "Captains, listen to this." She played back a slowed recording of the signals. Hidden in the electronic noise was something that sounded almost like words. "Pain. Why, help." The entire fleet went silent. They were inside a dying creature the size of a solar system, and it was trying to talk to them. Communications Officer Kim on the flagship began responding. She used simple on-off pulses, like tapping on someone's shoulder. The response came immediately. A burst of signals that made the ship shake. "It knows we're here," Yang reported, "and it's trying to communicate." Other captains joined the conversation. They used basic radio, codes, mathematical patterns, anything simple the creature might understand. Slowly, communication improved. The breakthrough came when Captain Choi realized the patterns matched emotional states. The creature wasn't just in physical pain, it was afraid. "It doesn't know what's happening to itself," Choi reported. "It's dying and doesn't understand why." Ship after ship made contact. Human pilots trained to rely on instinct when technology failed began translating the creature's signals. It was like learning a new language in real time. Dr. Park's research vessel detected something crucial. "Captains, the consumption isn't random. The creature is trying to pull energy into itself to stop the pain, but it's making things worse." Yang understood. The cosmic entity was like a wounded animal, thrashing around without realizing it was hurting others. "All ships maintain safe distance but keep transmitting," he ordered. "We need to help it understand." The conversation continued for hours. Simple questions got simple answers. The creature was ancient beyond measure. It had been exploring the universe when something went wrong inside it. "We're like single cells trying to talk to a human," Captain O reported. "But somehow it hears us." As understanding grew, the pain signals changed. The creature began to realize it wasn't alone. For the first time in eons, something was trying to help instead of flee. Yang felt a chill run through his ship. Looking at his instruments, he saw something impossible. The darkness around them was becoming less dark. The creature was learning to hope, but humanity's real test was just beginning. They'd made contact with the dying entity. Now came the hardest part, helping it find peace. Dr. Kim's hands shook as she worked the radio controls. For hours, she'd been translating signals from the dying cosmic entity. Each message grew clearer, more desperate. "It's scared," she reported to Captain Yang. "It doesn't want to hurt anyone, but it can't stop the pain." Around them, the darkness pulsed with waves of agony. The creature's suffering had grown beyond measure, and in its panic it was consuming everything nearby. Yang watched his instruments. How do we help something this big? The answer came from an unexpected source. Pilot O's sister had been a nurse before joining the fleet. Over the radio, she shared stories of helping patients through difficult times. Sometimes people don't need solutions, she said. They just need someone to be there. Communications Officer Park tried a new approach. Instead of asking questions, she sent comfort signals. Simple, steady pulses that said, "You're not alone." The creature's response was immediate. The chaotic energy patterns smoothed into something like relief. Throughout the fleet, human crews worked to maintain contact. They shared stories, sent music converted to radio signals, even transmitted recordings of children laughing. The entity absorbed it all hungrily. "Fascinating," Dr. Yoon observed. "It's never experienced emotions like hope or companionship. These concepts are completely new to it." Slowly, painfully, the truth emerged. The creature had been alone since the universe was young. It traveled between galaxies, studying life from afar. Then something had gone wrong in its cosmic body, like a cancer that spread through its being. "It's dying," Yang concluded grimly. "And it doesn't know how." The entity's signals grew more coherent. Through patient translation, it began to explain. Its species had been explorers, but they were solitary beings. When one of them died, it happened alone, quietly fading from existence. But this entity's death was different. The corruption in its body made it lash out, consuming whatever was nearby. It was like a person with a fever, unaware they were hurting others. Captain Nam made a crucial realization. It's fighting death. That's why it keeps growing. It's trying to survive by taking energy from everything around it. The solution was painfully simple. The entity needed to learn how to let go. Dr. Kim felt tears on her cheeks as she transmitted the difficult truth. The creature didn't have to fight anymore. It was okay to rest. The response nearly shattered every radio on the fleet. The entity's scream of understanding echoed through space. For countless eons, it had been afraid to die alone. Now it realized it didn't have to. What happened next amazed even the humans. The cosmic entity began teaching them about its kind. They were the universe's first children, born from the chaos after the Big Bang. They'd lived so long that loneliness had become their normal state. "No being should die alone," Yang said simply. "Not even one this big." The entity's signals changed. Instead of panic and pain, they carried something like gratitude. It had spent eternity believing death meant eternal isolation. Humanity showed it differently. Captain Choi's ship detected the first changes. The darkness at the edges began to thin, not disappearing, transforming. The consumed matter wasn't destroyed, it was being reorganized. "It's not just dying," Choi reported in awe. "It's transforming everything it took, making something beautiful from its death." Across the galaxy, astronomers detected the impossible. Where the void had been, new formations appeared. Nebulae of incredible colors spread like flowers. New stars ignited from the transformed matter. The entity's final communications were simple. It thanked humanity for the gift of companionship, for showing it that death didn't have to mean solitude. With human ships surrounding it like mourners at a funeral, the cosmic being finally found peace. As the entity faded, its death became a celebration of life. The matter it had consumed was returned as stellar nurseries. New planets would form. Life would grow again. Admiral Song watched from her flagship as the last of the darkness disappeared. Where it had been, a beautiful spiral galaxy was taking shape, born from death, crafted with love. The alien civilizations slowly returned from hiding. The Zephyri emerged from their higher dimensions. The architects opened their pocket universes. They stared in amazement at the beautiful transformation. In the council chambers, the same aliens who had mocked humanity now asked how they'd achieved the impossible. Yang spoke for Earth's delegation. "We didn't save the galaxy with better technology or superior firepower. We did it with something simpler. We refused to let anything die alone." The cosmic entity's death had created nurseries for new life. But it also created something else, a bond between species that had never existed before. Humanity had proven that sometimes the most advanced solution wasn't technological, it was emotional. Compassion succeeded where complex calculations failed. As Earth's fleet headed home, they carried more than victory. They carried hope. The universe was vast and often cold, but no one had to face it alone. Behind them, new stars were already forming in the beautiful nebula that was the entity's final gift: life from death, light from darkness, hope from connection.